Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel, Brandy Janae's Bookshelf. As you can tell from the title of this video, today I'm going to be doing my June wrap up. The last 2 months have been very interesting. I feel like I've been teetering on the edge of a reading slump, and in order to help myself with that, I have been reading less like normal novels and more so reading mangas, comics, and graphic novels. I know that's all pointless and you guys probably don't care about that. Let's jump into stats. For the month of June, I read a total of 20 books. And then over those 20 books, I read 4,655 pages. And then for the month, I had an average rating of 3.9 stars, which I was shocked by. I'm pretty sure that that is, as of right now, the highest rated or highest average rating for any month so far this year, which I think is great because I mean, I've picked up a lot of things that I really enjoyed. And then a little further breakdown as far as the actual books. I did not have any DNFs for June. I had 6 books that were technically rereads. I had 1 book that I read only as audio, but I read 3 audiobooks total for the entire month. Sorry, I hope that wasn't too confusing. But now that I finished all of those stats, let's get into the books and ratings and whatnot for the month. Okay, so starting right out, I did not have any 1 or 2 star reads for the month. So we're going to skip right over and go into 3-star reads. The first thing that I have to talk about in my 3-star section is Model Volume 1 by Lee So-young. So in this story, we're following this character named Jay. And at the beginning of the story, we learn a little bit about how she moved to Europe in order to study art with dreams of becoming a successful painter. However, she is a struggling artist and things aren't really going the way she was expecting them to. And one day, randomly, one of her friends that lives in Europe comes to her apartment and leaves this random guy there to spend the night because he's wasted or whatever. And Jay doesn't really know what else to do, so she lets the guy stay there because she's like, he's passed out. Nothing is going to happen. But some strange things happen in the middle of the night. She ends up finding out that he's a vampire. And after some taunting on his part, she agrees to move to his house in order to continue working on her art. And like they have this exchange where she would move there and let him feed from her, and she would be able to paint him. So it's pretty much just following Jay as she gets entangled with this vampire, and she doesn't really know what she's doing and why she agreed to this. This was, I don't want to say different than what I was expecting, but of course, having been so many years out of high school, especially since I first picked this up, there's a lot of things that I have noticed that I completely looked over at that point. So it wasn't my favorite thing ever to read, but it's interesting, especially going back and looking at manga that I have read previously and had certain thoughts in my head about it and seeing how I feel about it today. So this was not perfect by any means, and I think if I was to have picked this up like today for the first time, that I probably would be on the fence about continuing it or owning physical copies of it. But now that I do own all of them, I will read all of them. It wasn't a bad read. It just wasn't something that I felt like I would be personally interested in now. But this one ended up getting 3 stars. The next 3-star read that I have to talk about is The Wicked and the Divine Volume 1 by Kieran Gillian. And this one is a comic that is following kind of a set of characters. So in this world, every 90 days there are 12 guys who are reincarnated basically as humans, and they are thrust into popularity, and they basically have 2 years to kind of live their lives before they die. However, when there are some humans that are killed, there's one guy's life that is on the line who might possibly be killed forever. And we're kind of following the story through the human who seems to be getting entangled with all of these gods. This one is kind of confusing to talk about because I felt like the story itself was pretty confusing. It kind of just throws you into the story, and it doesn't, sometimes when you're thrown into the story, then it kind of backtracks, take you to the beginning, and you get a better understanding of what is actually going on. But this one, it doesn't do that. It throws you into the middle, and then it just keeps going, and you kind of just have to catch up. There was a lot of little details about the different gods and things like that where I was just like, it would be nice to know more about. It was good and bad parts to this, mostly because of me feeling like I didn't understand enough about what was going on in the story. Also, having to see the story filtered through another character. This is something that I mentioned when I was talking about another book, which you guys probably don't even want to hear the whole backstory of. But I don't always really, or typically I don't like having the story filtered through another character, especially when that character doesn't seem to have much importance to the story. Now, by the end of it, it seems like she's going to become a much more integral part of the entire storyline. But at least as far as this volume, for 95% of it, I was just like, okay, she's just there to show us what's going on and to try to get things moving. But ultimately, she's not doing much but getting in the way. And that was weird. But like I said, that last little portion kind of gave us an idea of the fact that there's going to be more going on than we initially think. I don't know. This is one that I'm definitely on the fence about. Good and bad moments to this, but I enjoyed it enough and I gave it 3 stars. I do want to continue on with the series, but for now at least, I think I'm going to try to check these out from the library. The next one that I have to talk about is another 3-star read, and that one is The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. In the story, we're following this character named Jake Livingston, who is one of very few black kids that goes to St. Clair Prep. Yes, it's St. Clair Prep. And he's also a medium, meaning that he can see ghosts. And typically for him, this hasn't been a huge issue. It causes him to be very unfocused at times and not really in touch with the world around him. But usually it's just him seeing ghosts repeating their deaths over and over, and them being a little distracting. However, all of that changes when he comes across this vengeful ghost called Sawyer, who is determined to possess him and live as him, basically. I really wanted to love this book, and I wish I had, but I knew going into this that this book was out of my comfort zone. I definitely would have given this a higher rating if it had been a contemporary, or like completely contemporary and not with magical elements to it when it comes to the ghosts, especially because I was not very interested in the whole possession storyline aspect of it and having to fight this ghost. It was interesting to read, but I think with the fact that it's not something that I am personally interested in, not like something that I would go outwardly seeking when it comes to books, on top of the writing choices at some points, I got lost in the narrative, especially in those like haze like settings, like all of those aspects. I just was not really a big fan of, and it took me out of the story a lot. However, the real world part of it, with Jake dealing with his sexuality and having to confront his mom and having a possible new romance, like all of those things, all of those aspects of the story I really enjoyed. But of course, because the main focus of this is him being a medium and having to fight this vengeful ghost, that was most of the book, and I just didn't care too much about reading for that. I would say that this is definitely not a bad book at all. It just wasn't the book for me. From what I read, it wasn't my favorite thing for writing style, the like certain content of the book. But overall, like I said, I enjoyed it, and I think that it would be the perfect book for the right audience. I definitely will be looking out for books from this author in the future. So the next book, or really next set of books that I have to talk about, is going to be split over my 3 and 4 star section, and that is the books in the DNA Angel series by Yukiro Tsugisaki. In the series, we're following this character named Daisuke Niwa, who is a middle school student. Why am I struggling with that? And he is going about his typical middle school life. Things are a little weird at home for him because his family is always putting him through training that is not expected of a middle school student. Then one day he gets rejected by his crush after he confesses his feelings, and he finds out about the family secret, which is that whenever he gets overexcited about his crush, he actually transforms into this phantom thief. Once he's this thief, or every night he has to go and steal something because that's part of the family legacy, and he's going to continue turning into this phantom thief until he gets his crush to reciprocate his feelings or something like that, or at least that's how the story starts. I'm not going to get into all of the details about each volume because it's literally like 3 chapters per volume, but here's volume 1, which ended up getting 3 stars. Volume 2 also got 3 stars. Volume 3 got 4 stars. And then finally volume 4 got 4 stars. So officially now we're in the 4-star section, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the biggest section. The first 4-star read that I have to talk about is Sweet Talking Lover by Tracy Livesay. This is a dual perspective story following Kayla Harris and Wyatt Bradley. Kayla is very career centered. She got into this certain company and she has been building her way to the top, and she's about to go up for this very big promotion, and every year her and her friends take a vacation, and while she's on the vacation with her friends, she gets a phone call, finds out that her grandfather died, and that causes her to go into a downward spiral, which leads to her possibly not getting that promotion that she really wanted, as well as possibly losing her job. So in order to save herself, or like to kind of build her cred back up, Kayla is sent off to this small town to get enough information from this factory showing that they're not keeping up with the standards that this company needs, so that they're able to shut them down. On the other hand, we have Wyatt Bradley, who is the mayor of the small town that Kayla travels to, and they get the news about the potential shutdown or losing the contract with this big company, and he decides that he's going to do whatever it takes to convince Kayla to convince her company to let them stay open because they really need the business for the town. So it's pretty much a back and forth of them trying to complete their separate missions, and in the process of that they start to fall for each other. So when I read this, I was really upset with myself that I put this off for so long, because this was what I really enjoy in romance. This is one of those books that I had to like force myself to put down because I just was always wanting to read it. I love when there are 2 characters who aren't perfect, but their not perfectness fits together so well. I know that sounded really crazy, but these were those type of characters. Like, they weren't the best type of people, like they weren't the best in previous relationships or anything like that, but they fit for each other so well, and I just really love when romances do that. I was just so invested in their story, and that's the best kind of romance for me. It got 4 stars for me. I really loved it. I really just I wanted more. That made it very easy for me to go right into the next book that I have to talk about, which is Like Lovers Do by Tracy Livesay, which is the second book or second companion book in the Girls Trip series, which is the same as, Sweet Talking Lover. And in this one, we're following Dr. Nicole Allen and Benjamin Reed Van Mont. Nicole is very also career focused, just like Kayla, but in different ways almost. She is a doctor, but she's trying to go into a very specific type of field, and is not seen as something that a lot of women go into. So of course she has problems because of that. But at the start of the story, she's finishing up her residency and she's getting prepared to go off into a fellowship. But she disciplines one of her medical interns at the start of the story, and of course he is a son of a really big donor for the hospital that she's working at for her residency. So as a result of her disciplining that intern, her boss basically kind of gives her leave. Also, when she's put on that little leave of absence, it's also hinted at that her fellowship might be in trouble as well, and she's really upset about that and doesn't really know what to do. And she ends up talking to her roommate about it, which is Benjamin, or Ben as he goes by. And he's actually the son of this family in this well-known medical business. And he offers to talk to his parents for her in order to speak with the doctor that's in charge of her fellowship to make sure that she doesn't lose that fellowship. She is like really appreciative, and she's trying to figure out a way in order to thank him for deciding that he's going to do that for her. And it ends up coming up that his ex is going to be coming around to some event with his friends, and she decides that she's going to go with him and pretend to be his girlfriend so that he can get rid of his ex-girlfriend, basically. So this is a fake dating friends to lovers type of storyline. This was just so good. I felt like I noticed more things that annoyed me in this one than I did in Sweet Talking Lover. And something that I noticed that she does in both of the books, at least for the two that I've read that are currently out already. So our two characters are very much hung up on something that happened in their past, which I don't think is a problem, but it almost seemed too close to the same type of problem that it didn't seem original when it came around to the second book. It just seemed too similar to Sweet Talking Lover, and with me having read them so close together, it was very noticeable and it was kind of annoying, at least as far as me. However, with that being said, that did not really take too much from the story for me. I still really enjoyed this. It ended up getting 4 stars, as well as Sweet Talking Lover, and I enjoyed this. I want to pick up more from her. Moving on to the next 4-star reads that I have. This is actually another set of mangas that I have to talk about. The next set that I have is A Bride Story by Kaori Mori. So this story takes place in the 19th century, I believe, along the Silk Road, and this story starts off following a character named Amir Hagal after she is sent off to become the bride of the next heir to the certain area. And when she gets there, she finds out that her husband to be, Karluk, is actually 8 years younger than her. He's only 12, I believe, because she's 20. So yeah, he's only 12, and because of that, she kind of takes on this big sister role initially. And we're kind of just following the two of them at first, starting to get to know each other, and Amir getting used to this new family and the customs compared to the nomadic family that she lived in. And then eventually we start branching off into other characters, other storylines and things like that, at least as far as the first 4 volumes that I've read. I really enjoyed the art style, and I appreciate that this didn't make it super creepy with how big the age gap is. But it's something about the story that I just really enjoyed. I feel like I'm doing a very bad job of explaining how I feel about this, but it was interesting, and I definitely want to read more in the series. I have volume 1 here, which this one ended up getting 4 stars for me, and I don't usually do this, but I really enjoy the artwork. So there's the back cover of volume 1. Then we have volume 2. Some of these might be hard to see, like this one, because they have their barcode right on the front, right over her face. But yeah, there's volume 2. Here's the back cover of volume 2. I think these are the main 2, volumes 1 and 2, that really focus in on Amir and Karluk's story. And then I think volume 3 and 4 really start to focus in on other characters that we meet along the way. So here's volume 3, as well as the back cover for volume 3. And then finally, here's volume 4. And here is the back cover for that. All of those did get 4 stars for me. I did have some that I enjoyed more than others. I think as far as storytelling, I really did enjoy volumes 1 and 2 more so, because that really focuses in on Amir and her look. It's like one of those stories that you're kind of just following along with these characters' lives. There's really no big plot line going on, but I still really enjoyed it. It was just something that I was just like, okay, I'm just living someone else's life right now, basically. And I just really enjoyed that. So if you're looking for something that has like a beginning, middle, end, maybe don't check these out, because it's just kind of everyday life with different characters that we're following in this story, but I really enjoyed those. The next one that I have is technically another reread for me, and that is Girl Got Game Volume 1 by Shizuru Sino. This one is following this girl named Kiyo Aizawa. She's really excited about going to this new high school. She's a little upset because she's having to move, but she's really excited about her new high school because she's like, oh, they have really cute uniforms. They're really well known for their cute uniforms, and I'm really excited about being able to wear that. However, she gets the uniform and it's one of the boys' uniforms, and she ends up finding out from her father that he enrolled her as a boy so that she can play basketball on their well-known boys basketball team. And she's forced with trying to fit in and making sure no one notices that she's a boy, so she doesn't get kicked out because she doesn't really have anywhere else to go. This is another nostalgia read for me. I did end up getting the entire series. I was able to find it for a decent price for all 10 volumes. It was pretty familiar to me because this is the one series I'm pretty sure that I have read at least one other time semi-recently, or maybe not the whole thing, but I definitely have read this series from beginning to end before, but I haven't actually recorded it on Goodreads or anything like that, so I am like marking it as a first time read. I appreciate that our main character and her rival slash potential future romantic interest, how they develop a friendship and how they like make each other better on the basketball court. Although this is one of those ones that I started me off, I think this one is gonna hold up in my heart. I don't know if it's gonna be a nostalgia thing or it's just like a story that I enjoy, but I really like this one. It got 4 stars from me on this reread as well, putting it through Clubhouse, so that's really good, and I can't wait to continue on with the rest of the series. The next 4-star read that I have from June is The Golden Sheep Volume 1 by Kaori Ozaki. This one is following this character named Sugu Mikura, and she is a high school student who loves playing guitar. And when she was younger, I think like middle school age, she ended up having to move away from the small rural town that she was living in with her family. Now, after a few years, everyone in her family that moved away except for her father are actually moving back to the small town, and she's really excited because she gets to reconnect with all of the friends that she had to leave behind, and she thinks that everything is just going to pick up right where they left off when she left. And she doesn't realize that all of her friends, or the 3 that were in her friend groups, have changed, and they're all very different people from where they were when she left them. So this one was one of those very conflicting stories. I honestly did not know what this was when I went into it. I almost kind of thought that it might have been like a thing with celebrities or becoming a celebrity type of manga, and no, that was not the case at all. This one was dealing more so with people having gone through hard situations and how they bounced back or did not from those type of situations, and stronger trigger warnings for bullying as well as suicidal thoughts and attempted suicide. It got really dark really quick. It was good, it was sad, and it was just like everything wrapped into one. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I want to check out more from the series. The next one that I have to talk about is The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. In this story, we're following this character named Yena Dar. She is an outcast that's living in the northern barbarian territory that has been kind of isolated from the kingdom. However, after her mother is killed, she's actually summoned to the Kingdom of Sky in order to fill her role as heiress to the king. As expected, things aren't exactly what they initially seem to be, and Yena is thrown into a power struggle between her 2 cousins, and she's basically forced with trying to battle it out to become the next ruler so that she doesn't have to die. Long story short, this one was very interesting. This is the first thing I've ever read from N.K. Jemisin before, and I think I'm glad that I started here. However, one thing that I will say starting off is that I wish that there was more than one book focusing on these specific characters. There was so much that could have been explored, and I didn't have enough of the characters, which I feel like is always a good sign. I feel like I'm in that haze where I'm like just lost in all of my thoughts. But I wish we had got a little bit more of the back and forth between the kind of romance between her and the god Nahados. I feel like that was very scarce. Because at first I was just like, oh, he's just using her for this, that, and the other. But when I realized that it was possibly more than just him trying to use her for his own benefit, I just felt like it wasn't enough of the romance, especially me being a romance lover. Of course, I always want more of the actual romance. It doesn't have to be like sex and things like that, but I just want more of the companionship and them relying on each other and learning more about each other. Just little things like that. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. It got 4 stars for me, and I want to read more from the author as well as more in this companion series. Moving on to what I believe is my last 4-star read, which is Prince Freya Volume 4 by Kiko Ishihara. For this story, we start off following this character named Freya, who has 2 adoptive brothers that she really loves. They come back to come visit her, and once they're leaving, she overhears some soldiers saying that they're going to attack the older of the 2 brothers because he was known as the Black Knight, I'm pretty sure. She sets out to go warn him, and in doing so, she finds out that she looks exactly like the Prince of Tyr and that he's been poisoned, and the prince begs her to take his place so that Tyr doesn't fall. She decides to do this, and she is kind of thrust in this position of being the prince and kind of rallying the Tyr troops in order to get them to fight the way they need to fight in order to make sure that the neighbor kingdom doesn't win. And in this volume, we're following her at the end of the battle at Fort Laren. Mainly we're focusing on Freya deciding what to do next, if she should go back to living her life like normal or, continue to pretend to be the prince in order to help Tyr. So if you've read the first 3 volumes, you can probably expect where the direction that this one goes in. And I would say that this is probably the calmest of all of the volumes from the first 4 of the series. And honestly, I think this is the calm before a very, very, very bad storm to come. It's kind of scary because I'm like, it seems like somebody important has to die every volume, and a couple of people did get killed off in this one, but I don't think that they were like major players that are going to really affect the story. It's just a lot going on, and I'm just like, I don't know what's going to happen, so we're going to see when volume 5 comes out. I don't think I'm ready for it, but this one ended up getting 4 stars for me, and we'll see what happens in volume 5. So now we're finally in the 5-star section. I only have 3 more books to talk about, and 2 of them are actually from the same series. So let's just jump right into it so I can finish up this video. So next I have Sweat and Soap Volume 5 by this is Sweat and Soap Volume 6 by Kintetsu Yamada. And in this volume, we are mainly focusing on Asako and Notori after they move in together and the benefits and struggles that come along with them finally living together. As always with this series, I love this. I always think that it's just going to be like an average next volume because how much better can this series get? But every time that I read a volume, it just makes me super happy. I'm always smiling, and I just love these characters together, and I really want more. It got 5 stars for me after putting it through Compound. And the final 2 things that I have to talk about are the first 2 volumes in Heartstopper. So I have Heartstopper Volume 1 and Volume 2 by Alice Oseman. And this story follows the 2 characters, Charlie Spring and Nick Nelson. The 2 of them meet in this mixed year class at the beginning of a school year, I believe. and they very quickly become friends. But things get a little complicated when Nick starts to question his sexuality because he's realizing that he might have more than just platonic feelings for Charlie. And it's a struggle with trying to figure out how that's going to work, if that's going to work out, and if that's something that they both want to do or, you know, do together. It was just something about this story that was just so endearing. It was just adorable. I loved it. It was heartfelt. Also, with the fact that there are so many different queer characters outside of just a student, it was just nice to see that it wasn't just our main characters who were the queer characters. It's just a lot of representation as far as different queer characters that I just really enjoyed. I thought it was heartfelt. It was really good, and I loved both of these. So volume 1 got 5 stars, as well as volume 2. So those are all the books that I read in June. Like I said, I read 20 books, so those are all 20 of the books that I read. It was a pretty good reading month. I wish I had been able to finish more. I had actually started 2 other books that I did not finish. I'm actually still currently working on them. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more from me, make sure you subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you again in the next one. Bye.